Science is obsessed with the pursuit of truth, but sometimes people will fudge the truth a little bit to get ahead, even scientists. Some scientists will exaggerate or straight up make up data to support their claims, and people point to the stressful nature of a publish or perish culture for it. Basically, researchers face fierce competition to get a study published in a highly respected journal just to get funding for further research. If they don't, they're toast. Some scientists are starting to believe that there's a real problem with fudging the truth in science. A recent study published in the journal Nature found that the problem is actually getting worse. The researchers found a 10-fold rise in a decade of the number of retractions from fraudulent papers.
Citizens on the streets accuse industry of hiding the truth from us. As the corporations defend and deny, how are we to judge which side is right? So we turn to science, asking researchers to be the arbiters of this argument. Surely they should know best. Except that scientists who do step into the fray are then themselves targeted and are subject to influence, corruption, and infiltration.
We're living in a world where there are many people who have a vested interest in fighting information, fighting scientific evidence, and discrediting even the notion that science could provide the truth about the natural world.
They are intentionally seeking to derail science.
The first step is to identify these attacks and then expose the machinations of those trying to stand in the way of knowledge.
And in that context, it's essential for us to understand who these people are, what they do, why they do it, and how they do it.
The mass death of bees is just one of many phenomena experts have been asked to explain. Traditionally, science has the role of highlighting natural mechanisms and reaching an explanation for the slightest observable fact. This is how science normally progresses, by solving more and more mysteries. And in principle, our knowledge of the world we live in increases. However, this fine principle sometimes has a few hiccups.
The nation racing to win over the unvaccinated as COVID cases surge.
Are you vaccinated?
Not at the moment.
But among some African Americans, fear.
What's the hesitancy?
We've been told so many lies for so many years.
Mistrust in a medical system rooted in history, like the Tuskegee study in 1932.
They were told they'd get treated for their bad blood. Instead, hundreds of poor black men became participants unknowingly in a shocking and truly shameful chapter of American medical history. In 1932, the United States Public Health Service launched an unethical research project to examine the effects of untreated syphilis. The project was called the Tuskegee Study because it recruited 600 black men living in Tuskegee, Alabama. Researchers told the men that they were being treated for bad blood, a term used locally to describe anything from fatigue to anemia. They promised the men free medical treatment if they participated. While 2/3 of the men in the study were confirmed to have syphilis, not one received proper treatment for the disease they had contracted.
So this was a study in which there was no consent on the part of those who were being studied, also deception on the part of the U.S. government.
When penicillin became the recommended treatment for syphilis in the 1940s, Tuskegee researchers scandalously withheld the drug from the men in the study so that they could continue to chart the course of the disease when untreated. Many patients experienced damage to their vital organs and nervous systems, and for some, the lack of treatment led to death.
The great shame of the study is that the men thought that they were being treated. Treatment was withheld from them, even after it was very clear what kind of medical treatment would cure them of syphilis.
In 1972, an Associated Press article exposed the Tuskegee study after one of the participants brought the story to a civil rights attorney. Only then, after 40 years, was the study brought to an end. The case was settled out of court for $10 million.
This long history of medical experimentation on African Americans creates a sense of distrust, a distrust of doctors and physicians, a distrust of medical care.
In 1997, President Bill Clinton formally apologized to the victims of the study. The president's apology was a welcome first step, but we still have a long way to go before the legacy of mistrust of science within the Black community is fully overcome.
The generation of strategic ignorance is being constantly perfected. And debunking it often means plunging into the details of scientific practice. There's a constant stream of innovations on the market, accompanied by a fair share of scrutiny. Are they a threat to our health? And more importantly, what are safe levels? That's the big question, the one at the heart of a fierce dispute.
You're looking at video of Sandra Lindsay, an intensive care nurse receiving the first vaccination at Long Island Jewish Medical Center in New York.
The U.S. began vaccinating the population against the coronavirus in December of 2020. The goal is to get the COVID vaccine to every person in the U.S. who wants one. But survey data shows that nearly 40% of the U.S. population doesn't want it. Widespread mistrust might have something to do with the fact that if anything goes wrong with the vaccine, the drug makers that produce them aren't responsible.
This is a remarkable circumstance. It's certainly not like anything anybody's ever seen before.
That means that companies like Pfizer and Moderna have total immunity against lawsuits related to injuries resulting from taking the COVID vaccines. Meanwhile, employers are legally allowed to require employees to get immunized against the virus.
Well, sir, thank you very much, and congratulations. We got a chance to talk right after the vaccine was authorized, right after it was, the data first came out, and now we have the first conversation after it's authorized. Let me wish my congratulations to you.
Thank you very much. And indeed, it was like yesterday that we had this discussion.
Have you taken the vaccine, sir?
No, I haven't taken it yet. And we are having an ethical committee dealing with the question of who is getting it. And given that there are very strict allocation rules that the CDC has voted, we are very sensitive not to cut the queue and have people getting vaccinated before. So still, I think this committee recommends that I will get vaccinated because polls that we have seen said that people will believe much more on this vaccine if the CEO is getting vaccinated. So likely I will get it.